we're going to be talking about big businesses in the Gilded Age. So we're going to be talking about how technology is going to basically influence how the United States is going to expand. So last week you guys looked at the PowerPoint for the Transcontinental Railroad. Basically that is a railroad that's going to connect the East Coast to the West Coast. So they built this gigantic railroad system to allow America to be able to trade, travel, and be productive more quickly after the Civil War, okay? So you're gonna see a lot of businesses are gonna start to boom during the Gilded Age, and also see how labor unions and technology is gonna pop up during this time period. Last week you guys also should have seen on the slides where I was talking about the Plains Indians. So because these Americans are expanding westward into the United States, so they're expanding over into California, all these areas over here, you're going to see that they're going to have conflict with Native Americans. Why do you think that is? Yes, so you guys remember in the beginning during the 13 colonies, this is the same concept. We're moving over here, this is our land now, and those Native Americans are being pushed off. You guys remember during the Age of Jackson, what happened? What was the Trail of Tears?
People running.
Yes, so remember, Andrew Jackson's like, hey, you guys are savages, you don't deserve your land, so he pushed them off. So, because they're expanding west and this railroad system is moving from the East Coast to the West Coast, they're getting pushed off their land again, okay? So we're gonna watch a quick video on the Battle of Wounded Knee. It's basically gonna kind of hit on those topics. There was multiple conflicts between the American settlers and the Native Americans during this time. So there's a couple questions we're gonna kind of go back over after we watch the video. So our first question, what was discovered in the Black Hills of North Dakota? What was the dance that many Native Americans performed as a method of protest? What did Colonel Forsyth order in the morning? How did the Lakoi, how were they killed in the massacre? And what do you believe the troops felt after they killed those innocent Native Americans? Cool? Okay. I can get my mouse to work. One second, gotta find my other mouse, please.
Hello, welcome to the Daily Bell Ringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. The massacre at Wounded Knee, sometimes called the Battle of Wounded Knee, took place on December 29, 1890 in southwestern South Dakota. The massacre resulted in the deaths of as many as 300 Lakota people, including men, women, and children, when they were attacked by soldiers of the United States Army. The event marked the final clash between the Sioux tribe and federal troops. In the years leading up to the massacre, the United States government and Native American leaders had been attempting to negotiate peace between the two. Before and after the American Civil War, American settlers, following their manifest destiny, had been pushing further and further into the West, pulled there by ambitions of mining for gold and precious metals, or simply to get land. In 1874, gold was discovered in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Americans began to flock to the area and ignored previous treaties and forced the Sioux from their land. Fighting ensued as the Sioux people defended their land and resisted U.S. efforts to force them to move to reservations. Prominent leaders such as Sitting Bull began to lead resistance and try to maintain the Native American way of life. Additionally, as more and more Americans moved west, essential resources for Native American people, such as the buffalo, were hunted to the edge of extinction. Upset by the loss of their land, resources, and way of life, Native American groups who had been forced to move to reservations began to protest. One form of protest was the ghost dance. The ghost dance was a ceremony in which many Native Americans performed a circle dance that rejected American culture. It also called on their ancestors to return and help to stop white settlers from further encroaching into the West, and also called on.
All right, what did they find in South Carolina before we keep going? Gold, right. Why do you think that's valuable? Try it, Nelson. Why do you think that's valuable for anybody? You're finding gold.
Why wouldn't it?
But
Money.
why is gold
Money.
valuable? Money, it's currency, but you know, if you think about it, if everybody is mostly based over here in this East Coast area, what's that's gonna make people do that's over here? Where are they gonna go? Not Canada. They're gonna move to where the gold is, right? You guys heard about the gold rush. So people are like, hey, if we can find gold, we can get rich. You're gonna see a lot of people moving over because like they had this idea that they're all gonna find gold. What was the dance they were doing as protest? Anybody catch that? The ghost dance. What was the ghost dance purpose? What was the Native Americans trying to do?
Protest.
Yeah, protest what? American settlement, yeah. Okay. So we got 3 more questions. So, what did Colonel Forsyth order? How many of the Lord Cook died in the massacre? And do you think the troops felt guilty about killing those Native Americans? A few more minutes and we're gonna get started on our PowerPoint.
Restoring Native American culture. The dance became a movement from the late 1880s into 1890 as many tribes in the West began to regularly perform the ceremony. In February of 1890, the U.S. government broke part of a treaty with the Lakota and divided up the Great Sioux Reservation in western South Dakota into 5 smaller reservations. The land would be divided among Native American families, and they were expected to learn to farm using quote-unquote American methods, and additionally were expected to send their children to government-run schools to learn American ideas. Thousands of U.S. troops were dispatched to the region to ensure that these new rules were being followed. Needless to say, tensions began to rise between Native Americans and U.S. troops. Adding to the tensions, on December 15, 1890, Lakota leader Sitting Bull was shot and killed by police on a reservation in northern South Dakota. In late December 1890, Lakota Chief Bigfoot began to lead approximately 350 of his followers from the Cheyenne River Reservation to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in southern South Dakota. On December 28th, they were met by the 7th U.S. Cavalry under the command of Colonel James Forsyth, which numbered close to 500 troops, and they began to escort the tribe to the new reservation. That evening, the Lakota were instructed by the 7th Cavalry to make camp near Wounded Knee Creek, where the cavalry surrounded the camp. The next morning, on December 29, 1890, Colonel Forsyth ordered that the Native Americans turn over their guns to the cavalry. The soldiers began to go through the camp, taking weapons from the Lakota. Now, there are different accounts as to how exactly fight.
Okay, so what did he order on December 29th, the Colonel Forsyth? Yeah, he wanted the Lakota. Why do you think he did that? Hey, give us your weapons.
So they can't fight back.
Yeah. Why do you think that's important for the natives during this time period? We don't have any weapons to fight back. What do you think they're trying to do? That too, but also think about it. They were saying that they wanted the Native American kids to go to Americanized schools. What do you think they're trying to do to Native culture by doing that? They wanted them to be basically Americanized or Westernized. So if you want us to go to American schools, do they want them to keep their culture and heritage? No. So you gotta think that the conflict with the Native Americans is a long, drawn out process throughout American history, but it is very dark.
began, as one report claims some Lakota began performing the ghost dance and then opened fire on the troops, while other accounts claim that one Lakota named Black Coyote, who was deaf, could not hear the order to hand over his rifle, and the troops began to wrestle with him, and his gun discharged, causing the troops to open fire. Chaos ensued as troops on the edge of the camp began to open fire with large mounted guns, striking men, women, and children. Being predominantly disarmed, the Lakota had little way to defend themselves as the U.S. troops began shooting. When the smoke cleared, some 150 Lakota, mostly women and children, were dead, along with another 50 wounded, although some estimates have it closer to 300 killed. 25 soldiers were...
How many people died? 150. Native Americans. Native Americans. Yeah, 150. Can you imagine? That's a lot of people. And then remember, they just took their guns, so they don't have a way to defend themselves. Crazy. And we got one more question. We're gonna get started.
dead as well, although many were believed to have been hit by their own guns mounted outside the camp. A 3-day blizzard then hit the site of the massacre, leaving the bodies of those shot down frozen where they lay. Following the blizzard, men were hired to bury the dead. With them came photographers that captured the grisly scene at the camp. The incident was first labeled a battle, and some of the U.S. troops were even given medals of honor. But as more accounts of the events are recorded, it became clear that this was a massacre. The massacre brought to an end the Ghost Dance movement, and additionally is considered to be one of the final conflicts between the Plains people and the U.S. government. The incident at Wounded Knee is one of the darkest moments in American history, and a moment in history that should be learned from and never repeated. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.
All right, how do you guys feel about that? Like, they gave these soldiers medals for basically killing innocent people.
I think that's
Yeah, that's crazy. Think about it. People that were not able to defend themselves, they basically got shot down and killed, but people were given medals. Do you feel like that would have been that is disrespectful? And then, the weather was cold, so it got frozen over. These people were just laying out in the snow for like 3 days. Crazy work. Okay, so that is the Battle of Wounded Knee. So we're gonna start talking about different events during the Gilded Age, but we're gonna look at a couple of vocabulary words real quick. So, we already talked about westward expansion, prior with Manifest Destiny. You guys remember what Manifest Destiny is? No? Alright. Remember that Manifest Destiny is that idea that Americans have the right to have access to the United States from coast to coast, okay? It was a religious thing, like they had the Second Great Awakening, so they had this idea like, hey, we should be able to expand westward, okay? So they had that idea. So of course that's pushing more Native Americans off the land. So westward expansion and Manifest Destiny go together. We have the Plains Indians that we're already talking about. Our Transcontinental Railroad, you guys looked at that last week on the PowerPoint. That is connecting the East Coast to the West Coast with a gigantic project of railroads, okay? So Lincoln put that into place prior to him dying during the Civil War. It got completed after the Reconstruction, okay? So your Continental Railroad is connecting the East Coast to the West Coast with railroads. Cool? With your Chinese immigration, do you guys know which group of people were working on those railroads? Chinese. If you guys ever heard that show Warrior, it kind of shows you that time frame, and you can see how badly those Chinese immigrants were treated during that time period. Pretty good show. I don't know if you're ever curious. Then you have the Chinese Exclusion Act. What do you think that's about? Not necessarily remove them, but the Chinese Exclusion Act is basically a thing that basically limits how many Chinese immigrants can come into the United States, because remember, they're coming into work because they had this idea, hey, the Chinese created the Wall of China, and hey, they can work really fast, let's have them work on these railroads. It was very dangerous work. They had to use explosions to lay these tracks down. So the Chinese Exclusion Act was to limit them, but also if they were already here in the United States, they didn't allow them to have citizenship for like 10 years, something crazy like that, right? So the things we're gonna be looking at today, we're gonna be looking at industry, trust, monopolies, vertical integration, horizontal integration, and we're gonna be looking at individuals named, J.D. Rockefeller. You guys heard of Rockefeller before if you've been in New York or heard of it. And also, Andrew Carnegie. That area in New York called Carnegie Hall is named after him, okay? So this era of expansion and technology is called the Gilded Age. Do you guys remember in world history that period of enlightenment? What was the period of enlightenment about? So remember, the period of enlightenment was basically spreading ideas and technology, right? Science, art, things like that. Your Gilded Age is gonna be the spread of technology. So we have railroads. You're gonna see certain technologies pop up that wasn't available prior. The light bulb, the telephone, the telegraph, we'll talk about that later. So you're gonna see certain industries take off. So you have the steel industry, which is very essential for the railroads, but you're also gonna see oil. Why is oil valuable now, today? What do we use oil for? Not cooking oil, but like oil. Petrol, things like that. Power, yeah. What else? What do we drive? You guys seen the price of gas, right? That's a whole process of like refining oil, which we'll talk about later. But the process of refining oil is expensive. So you're gonna see how they're gonna kind of cut all that out in this particular time period, and they're gonna create things called monopolies. So we're gonna be able to see how technology is gonna make businesses boom during this time period, okay? So the beginnings of businesses are gonna pop during this time period. There's no rules. You're gonna see how people take advantage of that, okay? So the effect of railroads being created is gonna be very, very important. That make sense so far? Yeah? No? Alright. Alright, so you're gonna see how basically railroads is gonna create this industry for transportation, trade. You're gonna see increases of products being sold and shipped across the United States, but also globally. So if we're looking at our chart here, you're gonna see from 1865, which is in the middle of that Reconstruction era, how it's gonna basically boom. So remember, after the Reconstruction, there's a lot of destruction in the South. They have to rebuild that. But this is where those railroads are gonna be created and built. So you're gonna see a boom in products. So your railroads are steel. So you're gonna see the price of steel is gonna go up. Individuals who are like in charge of steel, they're gonna make a lot of money, because they're gonna come up with methods to make it cheap. Okay, so you're gonna see a demand of steel and oil. What does trains need to run? Oil. So steel and oil are gonna be a huge thing that's gonna happen during this time period, okay? That make sense? That make sense? Yes, no? I need y'all to focus. I know it's early, but I need y'all to focus. So, industry is economic activity concerning with raw materials and manufactured goods. So basically, industry involves using raw materials to create manufactured goods. So if you guys remember when we're talking about the 13 colonies, America had a lot of what type of materials? Raw materials, remember? And when they shipped it over to England, it became what type of materials or goods? Manufactured. So now America has the ability to use their raw materials to create manufactured goods, so you're gonna see a boom in the economy in the United States. That make sense? Yes. Industrialization. Yeah, so this is also a period where you're gonna see a lot of, factories and things starting to be built, because everything's gonna become industrialized. As they create more technology, America's gonna become this basically center of business, factories, they're gonna be very productive during this time period. That make sense? Everybody good? Yes, no? I know y'all tired, but I feel like I'm talking to the wall. Alright, so, what I would like for you guys to do on Google Classroom, there is a, primary source. We are going to look at it and we're gonna annotate it. Okay? Oh, God, okay. Try it, you try it from Google Classroom? Try it. Don't click on the E-Class and fix it. Try it from Google Classroom, guys. I forgot to give you access on that. I gotta fix that. So if you go on Google Classroom, it should say. Should say the Gilded Age. There's two different ones, but you're gonna click on the one that says the effects of railroads. So within your group, you're gonna look at basically different forms of evidence to basically support the idea that, railroads were very important. So, what you're gonna do on your blue sheet on Google, you're gonna underline any key ideas or highlight them, okay? Any words that are unfamiliar, you're gonna put a circle or box around them if you can. Anything that you thought was surprising, you just put an exclamation if you can. And also, anything you have questions about, you're gonna put a question mark. That make sense? Is everybody able to access that from Google Classroom? It's called, Effects of Railroads. If you click on it, it has the Gilded Age. Go in Google Classroom, it says the Gilded Age, there's two different ones. One says the effects of railroads, the other is the title thing, which we're gonna do later. Yes, this. Yes. Is everybody able to get in there? Mary Alice, you have to go in this triangle, right? Yes. Yeah, so you're gonna just highlight key points that you feel like support the idea that, railroads had an impact on America, and underline, circle or highlight in a different color, any words that are unfamiliar, anything like that.
You heard that?
So like this?
Would you see them?
Yeah, so you
To highlight anything that's
uh,
impacted the railroad.
yeah, evidence that the railroads are important or had an impact. Circle or highlight in a different color, any words you guys don't understand or never seen maybe, or unfamiliar.
I did the little thing you gave us to do when you were gone.
The, transatlantic trade thingy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta grade you guys' stuff.
Tudo que dele, não é? Tudo que dele.
Oh, I can't.
Go with it.
Let me just.
Yeah,
He said this. He said.
No, no.
Oh, yes, you are.
It's easy.
He doesn't, he's sleepy.
There. They already got the highlighting.
I just did like just
Oh.
go through, highlight, and anything you don't, any words that are unfamiliar, underline, highlight those.
Did you just call me? Excuse me. What are you doing? Can you put it down?
Everybody good? Any questions? Language, please.
Yeah, that's why you look like a baby. No, she's busy. When it grows, it's one big hair. Like one big hair. Yep. There's a photo shot of you. Now take a picture. A picture of her dog in the
You get your name?
The annotations?
The notes, you say you want to highlight?
Oh, no, that's just for the annotations.
What about this?
That's notes.
What's that?
This, oh, it's just the instructions for what we're doing. So you're gonna highlight main ideas, underline or highlight unfamiliar words in a different color, and we're just gonna talk about it. Basically, we're just looking at this source to see the different, like, impacts that the railroads had during that time period. Y'all gotta understand that, the railroads is kinda like how the internet is for us. They didn't have the ability to have access to the United States like that. If they were traveling, they had to get in their little buggies. They had to get in their little buggies and travel for days and days and days. Getting that railroad allowed them to travel and move things a lot quicker, okay? So you guys see, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it on any sites or anything, but if you're looking at how expensive it is to be in a train, back then, that was like breaking technology, okay? So like how our Wi-Fi and things are, they didn't have access to certain things. So once the railroads are created, you're gonna start to see the light bulb, the telephone, the telegram pop up. It's gonna be like mind blowing for them. So, yeah, the railroads were like a big deal, cause like they did have it prior to the Civil War, but they didn't have it widespread all over the place. They basically created a gigantic railroad system from your East Coast all the way to the West Coast. So it's spanning all throughout the United States. So it's connected everybody together. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So that was a huge project. What they did, they had certain immigrants working on the East Coast, certain immigrants working on the West Coast. So the Chinese were working on the West Coast, and you had a lot of, I believe, Italian, Irish people over here working, and they came together and connected it.
Do they still use a railroad or not?
Yeah, there's still railroads. There's a company, what's that company
Do they
called?
still use it though?
Yeah. So you guys know how like we have those little stops when you're at a trains coming through? Yeah. You're moving all types of products and things throughout the United States.
No, but I'm talking about like that railroad when they made, do they still use it or is it?
They probably have had to fix it up because it was old, so they have to do maintenance on it, make sure they're still running, but for the most part, pretty much those tracks that were laid are still there, pretty much. Genesis, please. Well, we have quite a line, so Genesis is going, and then Anai's gonna guys see anything interesting about this document at all? Anything, or anything surprising rather?
No,
Said no?
no.
You guys are funny.
You should be looking at that, effects of railroads on Google.
I can't highlight it here.
No, go back. You should be able to.
I thought you usually have them shown.
Not this one, go to Google Classroom. I have to fix it in eClass. But, if you go back to the Google Classroom,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
or go to the Google Classroom rather.
Yes, it is. This
I have
one's
to fix the link in there. I forgot to give you guys access to that.
Just kidding, yeah.
You're gonna click on the Gilded Age, and then click on that first one. And you should be able to highlight, type, underline.
Is there any highlight you can?
So this is a couple examples. So you're gonna highlight anything that you think is like a important main thing about how the railroads basically affected America.
Money, freedom, work.
So 5 examples of it in the text, highlight it. Any words that are unfamiliar, underline it. Yes.
So I can type my
Tell
own.
them, Larry, tell
Can
them.
I type my own?
No. You're literally, so you're looking in there, so the thing you just said, you're finding evidence for it. So you're gonna highlight it. So you're talking about freedom, being able to make money and transport items, you're gonna highlight it. And any word that's unfamiliar, you're gonna underline it. It is history. History, history is reading and knowing facts and information.
No, history's about the past.
Yes, but it's also reading. You do know that our textbooks are based off of primary sources people had to read to basically write them.
He's a fake friend.
Oh my gosh. Larry is working as well.
He's not even highlighting anything.
He's working.
You said that everybody has a highlight.
Alright guys, we're gonna do this for like 5 more minutes, we're gonna talk about it, and then we're gonna continue with our news. That cool?
You never spell. You never spell. Like me.
I'm good, I'm trying to just get back into, you know. And then we're gonna go.
Alright.
There's a
Why is she flexing me though?
If you really like to go back future.
Just gonna highlight.
Sure.
Yeah, I already got some.
And then just underline some more that are unfamiliar.
Sorry, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Damn, I didn't. Hey, if you want them to edit it, I got you.
You tired right here.
Nice to be sitting, respect.
Please don't say that. Please don't say that.
Yeah, underline everything.
Why? You don't understand anything?
No, sir.
Yeah,
I did.
she said
It's like that.
underline it, let me just understand it.
Oh.
Just like, if there's a word you don't understand before, okay, you can highlight it. No. Just main points you're gonna highlight about the railroads having like an important impact and underlining any words that are unfamiliar.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, you goof.
They're just getting it out.
chat a little bit?
Yeah.
So we did not have a graphic organizer, so we're just gonna talk about it a little bit. Okay, so was there anything in the, primary source that was kind of supporting the idea that the wearables is very important? Or had basically a lasting impact on the United States? You said rich people? What about rich people, Diana?
I feel like they used it to like travel around for quickly.
Definitely. So you guys gotta understand, this mode of transportation is expensive. So when you have brand new things, that are kind of groundbreaking, are they usually, affordable? Right, so this is a new technology, so people are really excited to use it. However, you're gonna see at first, you have to have quite a bit of money to be riding in these railroads, okay? Eventually, it's gonna become more accessible to everyone else, but at first, you're gonna see that rich people are gonna have access to it. Later on, next semester, you're gonna see when they start to create these like cars, which cars kind of exist now. Cars are like for rich people to like just play around with it. They break down a lot, but when Henry Ford comes around, you're gonna see everybody eventually is gonna have access to cars, okay? What else was kind of, supporting the idea of the effects of railroads? You said money? How so? You guys said money. How is money affected by railroads? Because what?
You need money.
You need money? Yeah, you need money, but, how else is the railroads affecting the American economy? What's happening?
Stuff can get transported real faster.
Way quicker. Think about it, guys. Prior to this, they were pulling things by horse and buggy. So it took things like weeks and weeks or months to get to where they needed to go. So you're gonna see a lot of products. Remember when we were talking about the first 13 colonies, how we were saying that certain products were based in specific states? Now this is not the case. Everything can be traded throughout the United States. It's not just a state-based thing. So let's use Georgia for example. What is Georgia known for? Peaches, and also what else?
I've never seen a peach big grown
Nuts, peanuts.
here. I've never seen a peach big grown here in Georgia.
You gotta go to certain parts of Georgia, like the, I don't know where they are, but there's certain parts of Georgia that has like the peaches. It's just like, you know, when it's like apple season,
Yeah.
like harvest season, there's certain parts of Georgia where you can go and pick apples.
Bro,
Yeah.
that's where dog will work.
There's a place that there's a place that I go that
But
I
no,
can
like,
take strawberries.
it's a farm, people can go on and they get a bag
Yeah,
and
I'm
they
eating
just
it.
fill their bag with apples.
Strawberries.
Oh yeah.
No, you gotta pay to go in there, but they give you a bag, you fill up your bag with your apples.
How much?
I have no idea, I never did it.
Typically,
Like an hour. I go
Then how much
they
you
make
strawberries
you pay
sometimes.
depending on the weight.
The whole family
Yeah.
over the summer.
Yeah,
They say
but I mean,
surprising.
it's fresh apples, so, but if you guys think about that, peaches are based in Georgia, but now because you have railroads, everything can be transported quicker. If we think about our grocery stores now, we have access to a lot of things, right? Different things all over the world. Being able to transport these items is very important. I was just in, Dominican Republic, I can't remember what he said, they transport, apples, I think it was. He said apples don't really grow there, so they had to import apples from other places. So apple is a commodity there. That makes it basically accessible for everyone. Everybody has access to it. So all that tobacco, cotton, all that good stuff is able to be in transport throughout the United States, just all over the place. That make sense? Yes, no?